Alex here. I am doing another review on a trending product that is being advertised more often because of early Black Friday sale. It is a air purifier, supposedly, and they do have some additional products as well beyond just the air purification, which we will review. The company name is UVlizer, however you want to say that, but the U in the beginning there, UV, stands for ultraviolet. Okay, so I got this advertisement on YouTube. I believe they're probably also advertising on other social media platforms. And I want to make this quick review because some of the way the ads go and appear, and the application of this specific product here, you see, this version, is a little misleading in terms of what it can and what it can't do, or what it's good at, what it's not so good at, basically. So I do just want to provide this review for people before they kind of hop on the train of thought that these ads are portraying and buy something that's not going to do quite what they think it will do. Okay, so however you say that, UVlizer, I think is how you say it, and they do have these crazy deals right now. All right, so let's get into it. The bulbs that they have here are UVC 2 bulbs, okay, and those, and they have another form of UV as well for their other product, which you'll see in a second. But those bulbs and UV technology in general has been used for decades. It's well proven to be very effective at producing a type of hydroxyl radical, okay, that is able to break down very wide variety of pollutants on the surface of something, in the air, as well as destroy viruses and bacteria. They also do use it in a lot of like water purification technologies as well. And there's just a different couple types of ultraviolet bulbs out there. Okay, one of the safest in terms of the hydroxyl radical that it produces is a UVC2. There's very few air purifiers on the market, very few, that actually use that or use it effectively. And I'll explain kind of what effective use of it would actually look like. Okay, so the first thing that kind of surprises me a little bit is this is kind of crazy to me, but when you see this thing and you see kind of pictures of it, the one that has the little stand here, which they're really pushing heavily. All right, so they got it on the surface of a desk right here. Okay, this is just crazy to me. What's so crazy, Alex? What's crazy is that you really should not be looking at these bulbs with your eyes. Like it, I'm like almost speechless. You shouldn't be looking at them. So the way that these are being advertised and portrayed to be used, you know, somebody just literally might have this thing like sitting on their kid's desk, or, you know, anyways, within view, and possibly even in close proximity to their face. And it's just not good at all. So in other words, the radicals that these bulbs produce by interacting with the air and what's in the air, without getting super technical, that's all good. It's totally fine. They use these in, you know, so many different situations, medically speaking, and military, and you name it. It's completely safe. However, you shouldn't be looking, staring, you know, visually allowing some of the rays of this to come into the eyes. Now, most people will have been familiar with this from like sunglasses, right? Oh, wearing sunglasses with the UV, right? UV blocking, right? Or even sunscreens, right? What is it blocking? UVBs, right? And UVAs, right? Why? Okay, so it's all radiation, right? It's all light radiation, okay? And we know that potentially can damage us, damage our skin. It could damage, yes, our eyes. You know why some people wear sunglasses, but that's a larger conversation about wearing sunglasses and how that's actually not good either. But anyways, it's besides the point. Point is, I would not have this thing going next to me. Okay. Now, potentially some people with certain eye conditions, if it worsens and they have issues with this, they might have a very easy time proving that this was to blame and suing this company. And the problem is that this company, after they've made their millions, they'll just disappear. And it's going to be very hard, really, well, anyways, I'm not going to go down that path, but basically, they're setting themselves up for a lot of liability and harming people, and they probably will never pay the price, for doing such a thing like that. So, moving on. As far as disinfecting let's imagine that this is safe for your eyes, which it is not, but let's imagine that it was, okay? If you just position this, and again, the way they advertise it, okay, is it's like, here's an option for you, okay, that's pretty low cost, as you can see, relative to other air purification technologies, correct? It's very low cost comparatively to some of the other trendy brands that are out there, and I have plenty of research on those out there as well. You might think like Air Doctor or Molecule or whatever. There's a million. They're much higher priced. So you might think, oh, I saw this ad. It's going to be cheaper. I'm going to put one in every room, right? I'm going to keep that air clean, right? Okay. Well, it's not really going to do a very effective job, okay, compared to other air purifiers out there. Even the not so great ones will still do a better job than this. Why? Because, let's go back here. So if this is turned on, it will be producing a form of hydroxyl radical, okay? This is a type of ion, okay? I'm not going to explain the mechanisms how that works. But anyways, when that is produced in the air, okay, it's coming off that, it's produced in the air around it. Absolutely the air around it and maybe the surface area, like this short distance away from the base stand, there's going to be a very, very short distance away on the table where anything on that surface will be disinfected, broken down, and then any air around this, and again, a very short distance, like a pointless distance, basically, will also 100% be purified, okay? Absolutely true, but within a very limited range. Okay, so what you don't see with this is, what you really need is for there to be some sort of movement of air, okay? Some sort of fan that basically, let's actually just play this video real quick here. Because without there being a movement of air, okay, through this thing, taking all of the air, okay, past everything that's in the air, you want to take all of that past the UV light, okay? And again, I'm just showing you because nowhere in this product, okay, nowhere in this description or video, as you can see, there is no fan involved here. Okay, there's no fan. It's just the light bulb. Okay, so that means that this thing is almost useless. Okay, why? Because just think about it logically. Air is just not like gusting around this thing and through this thing in your room. The only way that would be true is if you set up a couple fans, okay? A couple fans strategically positioned in that room that would make sure that a lot more of that air would pass through this thing. This is why generally with other air purifiers that might use a UV bulb, a UV bulb is built into the unit, usually, with some other purifiers, and then it sucks the air through it, which I will, by the way, show you in this video what's a really, really good unit that does that, okay? And has some other unique features. But anyways, normally a proper air purification unit would have an intake van, suck the air from the room and circulate it, and then they would give you a statistic specification, right, with most air purifiers, and they would say recirculates X volume of air in let's say 150 square foot room or whatever it is, right? It would purify and circulate that air within X period of time, every 20 minutes or every 2 hours. You'll always see with most better purifiers that they'll give you some sort of fact like that. They'll tell you how many times it will turn over all the air in that room. That's what you want to see, okay? Otherwise, you know, what are the chances that the room hanging out or the air hanging out somewhere in the opposite side is going to actually magically blow its way over and through this thing? Okay? Especially if you have a lot of VOCs or just your indoor air quality is not good for whatever reasons, especially if that, and most people, when they're looking into purification technologies, it's because they really want super clean air for immune system reasons, or because they know there's definitely like something not good in their air, right? They're really looking for that. So you have to have some sort of way of sucking the air past within range of the radiation that these bulbs can have action on. Does that make sense? So what would the capabilities of something like this do? The best way to use something like this would be with, let's go to their shop button and look at all the products. What you could use something like this for would be doing localized sterilization, okay, of surfaces or objects, okay? So I just wanted to go through everything they have here. Okay, so let me show you exactly what I mean. So like if you held this in your hand, okay, on this one end maybe, or, you know, you just, like if you took a toothbrush, for example, and you held it up to this thing within range, you would sterilize that toothbrush, okay? If you wanted to run this by hand across a pillow or across your desk or across the keyboard, okay, to a computer, and you wanted to sterilize, and you have to run it at a slow pace. I mean, there's a certain pace to it as well. But, you know, you could use it like that to sterilize surfaces. Okay, you could use it that way. Okay, so that's how you would do it. But you wouldn't want to just like prop it up somewhere, like, you know, next to your bedside, like they showed, and think that's going to like clean your bedroom air. It's going to purify it. It's more for like surface kind of stuff. Okay, now this UV bot actually is pretty cool, I must admit. This actually will like a Roomba almost, okay? It will actually go across like your bed, which I think is so funny. But honestly, it's actually kind of a good idea if you're staying at hotels a lot. So anyways, that's actually a good idea. But in other words, that's showing you though that to actually sterilize the surface of something, the light has to be, as you can see, within very close proximity, okay? And you could use it for something like that, okay? Now, then I was thinking, oh my God, you know what would be amazing is if there was a Roomba or like, you know, a Shark, you know, one of those robotic vacuums that actually had UV in it. Maybe one of their versions does, but man, that would be brilliant. That would be like a really good idea, especially if you have pets and things like that, bringing in all the parasites and things like that. 100%, if they have a vacuum like that, you should consider getting one. Sterilize your floors all the time is brilliant. But anyways, so let's get back to the UVlizer. Okay. So this is true. Eradicates the #1 root cause of allergies or allergens that might be in your air. Okay, the bulb can absolutely do that, but I just described to you the problem or the inability of this to do this with the majority of the air in a room. Okay, it can't. You have to have a fan. You have to have this built into an enclosed unit once again, and it has to run the air closely by it in order to have the effect. Okay, so now in the units, okay, that actually do that as I'm describing, that are better than this, that run air by these bulbs, even those units, okay, cannot really, there's limitations with them. Just visualize this logically, because I know you're saying, well, Alex, okay, what about this purifier, you know, over here, this other brand that uses a UV, and, you know, it's got a filter on it, and it's got, and by the way, that's another thing I might add, is also if you really are concerned about allergies and just a lot of other stuff that's in the air, also having like a really high grade HEPA filter, you know, and even some carbon as well sometimes is going to be a little bit better to have than not have. But anyways, as far as running air and sucking it in by the bulb, does that absolutely guarantee that it's always going to suck every bit of air in a room through the machine? Okay, no, it does not. It's kind of tricky, right? If you really think about it, what air is, and especially the fact that, all right, so here's the problem: is if you have a bunch of crap in the air, okay, that you don't want, a lot of that will adhere to over time with moisture, you know, coming out of your lungs a lot, or just humidity in your environment. A lot of it will adhere to the walls and surfaces of things in the room, or fall to the floor, and so on and so forth, right? And then you're vacuuming, and if you're vacuuming, you're then spewing and stuff all over that fell to the floor, and like, oh my God, it's really disgusting when you think about it. It's a total disaster. But anyways, so, you know, these other machines out there that are sucking air in by these things, it's still inadequate. It's still inadequate because it's not able to sterilize every surface in a room. Okay, that's the other problem. Okay, so let me now show you what it looks like if you want to use just a pure bulb, okay, like this, to sterilize a room. Okay, now they have used this in hospitals mainly, okay, and ER rooms, stuff like that. Now, do you see how many bulbs? This thing is crazy strong, okay, crazy strong, all right? And they actually, in a hospital room, they have to roll this around. So it's not just they plant it here and then they walk out of the room and never come back and it's all good. No, they position it here. Then they have to move it. It's actually very tedious and annoying. Then they have to move it to a different position. Why? So even something this big, which makes the other device now, I mean, first off, again, what I'm saying is here, if you want to like actually do an adequate job in a room with purely UV and no other mechanism, it has to look like this thing, okay? Massive. And even still, this is not a guarantee, and they have to move it. Why? Because what if from this angle of light, what if some of these objects in the room are not receiving the full rays of that radiation, right? What if they're in the shadow, so to say, right? I'll give you an example. Do you see this little blanket here, for example, that they have rolled up on the bed? In layers of that, it's common to have like MRSA and other like really annoying pathogens that you can pick up in hospitals, okay? Do you think it's going to get at all those bugs that might be in here, these little pathogens inside there? Okay, what about behind the pillow? All right, what about back in there? Okay, what about underneath the bed right there in that position there, okay, where no rays are getting to it right there? Do you think it's going to get there? So that's the challenge with these. So a lot of hospitals will use these, but that's the challenge, is you have to deal with shadows, okay, and the light doesn't reach everywhere, okay? So just pointing out that this will do a much better job than the UVlizer. Obviously, it's going to be quite a fortune, and it does even still, it has its drawbacks, okay? And it's pricey, right? So even this won't do really 100% good job, all right? And then we got this little thing, right? This thing kind of seems ridiculous after you saw the other thing, right? All right. It's like if somebody went into, there was a hot room and you had people in there and they're like, oh my God, it's so hot. And you whipped out like a pocket fan with AA batteries and you were like, don't worry guys, I got this. I'm gonna get you guys comfortable in no time. They're gonna be like, bro, you're crazy. Like this is now look at that, like the analogy here. Okay. That's just crazy. This is crazy to imagine that this thing would do anything significant to a room. Okay, so we talked about how there are some limitations with this light, okay, because it's light, right? So it has limited range. So you got to deal with shadows and whatever. All right, and that if you have some issues in a space, chances are there's stuff all over the floors, of course, or carpets. There's stuff on all kinds of surfaces, from beds to curtains to walls, you name it. Okay. Little crevices here and there, you name it. Okay. So does that mean that this bulb is useless? No. It has its place as part of a multi-step sort of unit. But I'm going to actually show you a unit that is quite unique, called High-Tech Air Solutions. And this one is probably the most unique on the market. And I'll explain the mechanism of how it works. And if you've been with me a long time, you may have seen me review this and interview the owner. So if you go into my YouTube channel and then you type search for High-Tech Air Solutions, you'll actually see me interview the actual inventor, actually the developer. So he did not invent the UVC2 bulb, of course. It's been invented a long time ago. But he discovered, really by accident actually, another mechanism that when you add it to the bulb makes it work quite uniquely. Okay. So there is UVC2 bulbs, long ones, inside the machine. Okay. Let's click on this. All right. So this can do up to 1,600 square feet or less. So that's very important. Those specifications are determined over a lot of testing. Okay. What type of testing? Well, I'll give you an example. Like they have a lot of testing, and then you can always request if you really want to see it, but testing different pathogens, all kinds of different pathogens in Petri dishes that were many, 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 many feet away from the machine. Okay. Do you get it? Pathogens that are far from the machine, and it would still kill them. Okay. So that means it could be on a surface. It could be whatever. All right. Now, most machines cannot do that. Okay. Most machines, to kill something in like a Petri dish several feet away or whatever, you'd have to take like a UV bulb like we showed before, and you'd have to bring it over there and hold it right within a very close proximity to that Petri dish in this kind of experiment, right? This test, right? And then you'd be able to kill whatever it is, okay? This machine can kill whatever at a distance from the machine. But how, Alex? Well, if it was just a UVC2 bulb by itself, sucking in air and running it past the multiple UV lights that are inside this thing, safely where your eyes can't see them, I might add, okay? If it was just doing that, it would be okay, but it would be still quite inadequate. It would not help people with lots of issues, as we talked about before. It would definitely not be able to kill something at a distance or like further away in the room or whatever. Okay. All right. So why? The one important fact I didn't mention, by the way, is that is a UVC2 bulb or whatever in here or in the other product or others, is it going to produce a radical that will destroy all kinds of things and break it down? Yes, 100%, absolutely. Okay. But it's a commonly known fact in the world of science with these types of ions that they only stick around, okay? They only stay in that form for an extremely limited period of time, okay? And honestly, I can't remember. It's like, maybe is it in milliseconds or whatever it is? It's so fast that is the main problem, or the limitation, I should say, with these things, okay? So it's not hanging around long enough to have an effect, okay, in an entire environment. That's why any air that immediately passes through in that brief few milliseconds, if there is something in that air, yes, that's right there in those few milliseconds, it can absolutely, as it passes through the machine, be destroyed. But this machine is very unique, okay, because the hydroxyl radical is produced by the UVC2 bulb here. The hydroxyl radicals that pump out the other side, they are stable for long periods of time, so they can build up in the air, okay? Let's see if they show the pads here. Okay, so you see these little pads here? Let me see. Reactor pads, and they kind of look a little orange. You see that? One side is no color, and then the other side has a color to it. Now the actual material of those pads is nothing new. It's been around for who knows how long, okay, as far as like basic filter pads go. What is unique though is what is actually sprayed there on the one side. Okay, and that, to get the full story, you gotta have to watch the interview. But I'll basically explain to you that it was found that there was a chemical that that basically reacts with the hydroxyl radical. And in that reaction, that it's actually a photochemical response. Photo meaning light, chemical, it's kind of obvious. So in that photochemical response, it produces a hydroxyl ion radical that is stabilized for a period of time. It hangs out in the air for a period of time. Okay? So let me explain this another way. Regardless of what type of compound is in this color here, okay, that's on the pad, anything that is on the surface of that in close proximity to one of those UVC2 bulbs, it will completely break down anything that's on there. Okay, you want to put grape jelly on there, it's going to break it down. Okay, whatever's on there, it's going to break it down. Okay? So yes, you do need to replace these periodically. Okay, but so it fully degrades. That's the great thing about UVC2s, is anything that your body finds harmful or whatever, it's going to fully break it down. Okay, so but one of the compounds that's in there, as it interacts with the hydroxyl ion, as I said before, forms a slightly different version of that hydroxyl ion that is, again, capable of staying in the air for a period of time. And it does a little bit better if there's a little bit of moisture in the room too. Okay, so that is what's extremely unique, and that's the only thing that comes off of this machine. Okay, literally. Okay, everything is broken down. The only thing that comes off is that unique form of hydroxyl ion. Okay, and within 24 hours, by the way, that air in there is completely sterilized. It's so sterilized. Okay, and it even takes some of the moisture out of the air that you're really guided to not even leave the door closed to a room. Okay, because it works so effectively. But that's a longer explanation. So as this builds up in the air, the hydroxyl ions, it builds and builds and builds and builds. And again, there's certain guidelines on this based on the square footage of a room or a space or whatever, okay, for it to be 100% effective. But as it builds, now what? That means that wherever there's air, you start to reach a saturation point. So wherever the air is touching in your room or space, that air is almost like a sterilizing air, because there's just so many of these types of hydroxyl ions in that air. Okay, so you actually do have then the possibility of, like in this guy's room, almost to just kind of show you, anything on that sign, anything on the couch, anything underneath this table stand over here. You see what I mean? Why? Because isn't air there? Isn't air touching the underside? Isn't air touching that? Isn't air touching your blinds over here? Isn't air touching this guy's face? Okay, so anywhere the air there's air, there starts to be enough of a saturation of the hydroxyl ion that this machine can produce. Okay, so there are, again, guidelines to making sure, depending on the space and what you're trying to do, that you're running it for the required period of time initially to build up enough saturation to reach the goals that you need to reach. And then there's a maintenance in terms of how often you use it to keep that entire space sterilized, both the air and all surfaces. Okay, this is extremely unique in how that mechanism works. They've backed this up with petri dish tests many feet from the machine. It's actually one of this company, they don't really do online marketing, just FYI. They do some very super basic traditional marketing, which is very minimal, more offline. And they are actually one of the more successful air purification companies in the industry. Okay, just FYI. So this is not some random company. They do very well. They're in a lot of different hospitals, a lot of different universities, high schools. So again, there's a lot of commercial locations. There are a lot of homes. They have teams across the entire country and beyond that do mold remediation and do other sorts of stuff like that, who are dealers for them. They're doing very well. So these things have been all over. So if you are having an issue with mold, which is extremely common these days in a fairly large percentage of homes, and or having just, of course, a variety of other VOCs and all kinds of toxins in a home. Because remember, every time you exhale with your lungs, you are also exhaling about 80% of the toxins that your body's trying to get rid of. So it's kind of disgusting if you think about it. So a lot of stuff is like building up in the air. And then air quality outdoors, unfortunately for a lot of people, is not always better. So you can't just open your doors and your windows and it's all good, right? This is not 80 years ago or wherever, right? So air quality really is a major problem. So you really kind of have to make sure you're building up in the space something that's going to be taking on these things. So yeah, if you do have a bit of like a mold issue or something like that, which is especially tricky, remediation, there are some limitations with it, the way that these remediation companies go about it. But we do have people now, plenty of people, I don't know, maybe a few thousand, that have used these, for example, like putting this right in front of their air duct, their air return, going back to their HVAC. And so if you have this running, the output end, which is the fan end you're looking at, if you have this running in front of like your air return, and we've of course calculated the square footage of the home and things like that, right? You can actually use that to clean your ducts and sterilize your HVAC. If you have a lot of animals, you might still always want to like clean out like the dust and the fur and stuff like that with another company. But outside of that, you can use it to sterilize that. And then think about it, what I told you before is, in that scenario, anytime your fan runs for your HVAC or your heat or your air conditioning, every time it runs, it's going to pump all those hydroxyl ions, those radicals, through every one of your vents to any one of your rooms, which is going to do what? Slowly over time, it will also build those hydroxyl ions inside of any room where you have a vent. It will build and build and build. So it's a very effective thing if you really want to make sure your air is clean, because HVAC, it's like your friend and enemy. It can keep you warm, it can keep you cold, but it just is just making things generally worse from an air, purity standpoint. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to share that this machine can be used a variety of ways. You can put it in a room on its own, freestanding. You can use it to run through HVAC. And then if you have a really big space, sometimes you'll need like a couple of these for a couple air returns, or you might need to switch over to getting one of the larger machines and run that through your central HVAC unit. It all depends, but you can always message me with my email address below or talk to the company. If you want a discount on this, sometimes they do sales during the year. And if you use my link below in the video, and or when you get on to the checkout page and you select, I'm here right now, okay, and if you select my name, okay, from the list, Alex Terrace, then you can, if there is a sale happening, you will get a discount immediately right there in your cart, okay? So make sure to always select my name or mention my name on the phone or use the link, and then that will, if there is a sale happening, then you'll get a little discount, okay? I did want to just go over at least what I think is one of the best units. One quick thing I would add, though, is if you are looking into purifiers right now and you say, well, Alex, like there's this other one over here that's really popular, and then there's this one over here that somebody recommended that has a HEPA filter on it, okay, and has a charcoal filter that's built in as well. That's great. HEPA is awesome. Charcoal, if properly done, is amazing. Okay, these 100% work, okay? But here's the good news. You don't need those things, okay? Technically, if you're producing the right type of hydroxyl ion to saturation in a space, okay? Because those types of hydroxyl ions, they degrade and break down anything that is in the air, inorganic or organic, okay? And then it falls to the floor. It's fully broken down. When I mean that, I mean like it's breaking it down molecularly, okay, to its like subcomponents, okay? And those subcomponents, just to be clear, they're not a problem for you. They're not a problem for a pet, okay? They're fully broken down. It's like, burning something to ash or something like that, basically, okay? So that means that if you get a machine like this, which you might say is, oh, it's a little more costly than, X, Y, and Z. Well, yeah, but it can do a heck of a lot more. Your air, anywhere the air touches, it's sterilizing and purifying, okay? Any surface as well, which is super important. And then you don't have to really deal with charcoal air filters that are expensive, or HEPA air filters, and having to deal with those too, okay? So your air itself is just constantly purifying itself, okay? So that is actually quite unique. Now, the other thing that this company might not tell you, and mostly just because the FDA doesn't like to hear this, but your immune system, okay, white blood cells, things like that, macrophages, whatever, in your body, it will tackle viruses and pathogens. Let's just say pathogens, okay, of varying kinds, and also some chemicals as well, some inorganics. It will tackle those things by producing very similar oxidative compounds, okay, just like this machine produces. Now, again, UVC2s are used in like premature baby incubators. They're used in submarines, the Mir space station. They use them in these really enclosed spaces, and even again with babies, because it's so safe, okay, because of the type of ion that it's producing. So it's totally safe for you to have this in your environment. And again, there's EPA and FDA clearances on this machine and others that might have a UVC2 bulb. But it's very safe. What I was going to say is that if you are in a space where there's a lot of crap in the air, part of the problem and challenge is that it can get into your sinuses, right? Your airways. It can get into your lungs, right? Now it's causing you a lot of internal problems. I'm kind of stating the obvious, otherwise you'd have no problem with the air in your room, right? In your space. Okay, well, because of the ability for this machine to saturate the air with this cleansing, let's just say, hydroxyl ion, aren't you also breathing that air? Yes, you are. So, if you also, most likely, have some stuff in now your lungs and your sinuses too, because it's breathing that air indoors, that what is in the air as you breathe, as this machine runs, has the ability to clear out what is in the lungs and the sinuses, in the respiratory airways. Now, the reason this company won't claim this, okay, and I will, because I'm not like the owner of the company. I don't really carry that same kind of liability, and the FDA won't hassle me, and the EPA won't hassle me. But they won't make that claim just because, really honestly, just because the FDA in particular, they just don't want people to get better, basically. So there's a lot of different situations where this can be quite miraculous, okay, for health. And they even get a lot of pushback sometimes in some hospital situations. So some hospitals, they have them installed in. Some of the ones will have a little bit of pushback because I can tell you amazing stories about what this thing can do with like healing wounds and clearing infections off people's skin, and all kinds of stuff. So they generally don't want people to know that, hey, this could actually help clear out a lot of stuff out of the lungs and the sinuses. And when you get into internal, the other main reason is because anything that becomes an internal, inside the body health claim, that obviously is now falling within the realm of what the FDA loves to, brand as, medicine, right? Or a drug, or some drug-like effect, correct? So that's the other main reason why they just don't want this company making that type of claim, because now we're getting into internal biology, right? So this discussion and education about these machines generally is about what happens outside the body. But I'm telling you what can happen inside the body. And honestly, it's just kind of logical, right? Something's stabilized and you're inhaling that air, what do you think's going to happen, right? So could then anything, and then here's the thing, is why you want pure air is one of the biggest... one of the major things that affects the cleanliness of your blood, and then of course then affects every cell in your body where that blood is being carried, is through your pulmonary system, and which is through your lungs in part. So anything that's in the air can get right into your bloodstream fairly easily. And for some people, it gets in much more easier than other people. Okay, and there's reasons for that. So once again, something like this could, I'm just going to use the word hypothetically or theoretically, help you also with cleaning things out of your bloodstream, okay? Or at least supporting the immune system, okay, in its process of being able to keep the blood a little bit cleaner, all right, because it's not being constantly bombarded as before with what it's pulling in constantly every time you take a breath, okay? So I know it's a long video, but I want to add in like a lot of these interesting insights, because for some people, this actually will be quite helpful. Like a lot of people deal with mold, for example, and then even when they're in a clean environment, they can still have persistent symptoms, and in part, sometimes part of the reason is what's happened to their lungs and their sinuses, okay? And then having things in there, or even candida, yeast, and funguses on top of that inside the lungs and the sinuses. So yeah, for those types of conditions as well, having what I've talked about is in the air using this machine can also help those sorts of cases as well. If you have any questions, just reach out, and we can chat about this machine, chat about your situation, and hopefully you found this educational and to be continued. Okay, bye.